There we go. Make this a little bigger for you. How's that? Oh, let me. Boom. That. Shit. Okay. Okay. So hopefully you guys can kind of sort of see this. Hopefully, if you're an adult, hopefully you understand that the Earth rotates. It also has a bit of a wobble, this precession of axis, right? So over time, the Earth kind of changes its axis in relation to the space around it, basically. And what this causes is, if you can imagine, a sort of ring of constellations. Just to be clear, this is astronomy, not astrology. There's a pretty major difference. And what you end up with, you see if there's one that basically what it causes is that over the span of about just shy of 26,000 years, you end up with a difference in the background constellation of on the sunrise on the morning of the equinox, which is the midway point between the winter and summer solstice. And so over time, so right here we're in Pisces right now is the background to the sunrise on the morning of the equinox. We're actually towards the end of it. Let's see if I can find one that has a timeline to show you where we are. I promise this does lead into history stuff. I'm getting there. Just give me some time. It's kind of a lot to just dive into, and I'm trying to explain it in a way that somebody that has no previous knowledge of this can kind of sort of grasp it. I guess I should have left that. Is this it? That's so small. Can we? I've found one before. It's been a long time though. I might have to label it the Great Year. Okay, yeah. So this is how it's laid out with the Kali Yugas from Indian Vedic culture. So here we are, right here, present day, and we're going clockwise, right? So we're right here at the end of the age of Pisces. The reason, the kind of the way this ties into history, right, is all over the world there are sites, historical landmarkers and such that have been built by different cultures at different times throughout history, and they are known. Not everything that's been built is known as an equinoctial marker, but some of them are known as equinoctial markers. All this means is that it is a place, a marker for where it points at the spot on the horizon where the sun rises on the morning of the equinox, right? So basically, it is essentially a monument to this concept of the precession of the equinox, or as it's also called, the Great Year. Now this has it listed as 25,000 year precessional cycle. It's closer to 26,000. I've heard 25,900. I've also heard 25,772 or something like that. But it's closer to 26,000 than it is 25,000. Although 25,000 is a nice round number or whatever. So one of the most famous equinoctial markers on Earth is the Great Sphinx in Egypt. It points directly at the spot on the horizon where the sun rises on the morning of the equinox. Here's the problem. The Egyptologists will tell you that the Great Sphinx is, I don't know, 4,000 years old or something. That's not really possible. The ancient Egyptians understood astronomy exceedingly well. Part of their belief system included that the Milky Way, when they looked up into the sky and saw the Milky Way, which most of you probably can't even do anymore because of city lights and light pollution, basically. But when you actually look up and see the Milky Way, it's pretty amazing. However, they looked at the Milky Way and described it as a river, and they believed that when they died, they would have to travel down this river, and how they conducted themselves in this life here on Earth would determine what kind of hindrances and obstacles they would face while traveling down this river to their afterlife or whatever, right? So they understood astronomy. I mean, that's not astronomy, that's a belief system based around astronomy, but they valued astronomy a lot. So does it make sense that they would make can I blow this up any larger? Inspect. No, that's not what I wanted to do. No. Shit. Where did that go? Does it make sense that they would build an equinoctial marker in the shape of a lion during any age other than the age of Leo? Damn, did I really lose that? Son of a bitch. There it is. Okay. So if you look, 2023, so we're looking at roughly 2000 BC, puts us right at the end of Taurus, going into Aries. So you have a bull and a ram. Why would they build an equinoctial marker in the shape of a lion? Doesn't make any sense. The last age of Leo ended. What does that say? Damn it, it's upside down. Hold on. About 8,500 years ago is when it ended. So probably the Great Sphinx is a bit older than what Egyptologists are agreeing upon right now. And this aside, there's also, Dr. Robert Schoch of the Geology Department of Boston University has also gone on record saying that the erosion around the base of the Sphinx looks like rainfall, not wind and sand erosion as the Egyptologists claim, which the last time it was raining enough to get that kind of water erosion in that area of the world was roughly 9,000 years ago, which would also put it right there, because we're looking at like 8 to 10,000 years ago was the last age of Leo, which is when the constellation of Leo, which is personified as a lion, was the background of the sunrise on the morning of the equinox. That was the last time that was the case, which also happens to have been kind of when you see the end of enough rainfall to be able to cause that kind of water erosion on that stone. Now, that just means it was there to get rained on. Realistically, it was probably getting rained on for thousands of years. There was a man who's passed away now, unfortunately, named John Anthony West, who was, you could call him an amateur Egyptologist if you want, but he was a master. I mean, he knew Egyptology very, very well. It's not really fair to call him an amateur. Like I said, unfortunately, he's passed away now. I believe his video series, Magical Egypt, you can still buy online. If you're interested in Egypt, I'd recommend checking that out. He hypothesized that this may have actually been, that the Great Sphinx may have been built the previous cycle, the previous age of Leo, which would put it at 34 to 36,000 years ago. That's a big stretch. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's a stretch. It's not impossible, but it's not super likely, if we're being honest. Yeah. So, anyways, that's my spiel about why the Sphinx is older than what Egyptologists say it is. Other equinoctial markers. Okay. Apparently, I haven't dug into this one real deep, but apparently Stonehenge has an equinoctial marker property to it. It also has other stuff going on, but whatever. One of my favorites is here in North America. It's in Ohio. It's called Serpent Mound. And it's pretty cool. It's an earthwork. You can see right there. This is what it looks like from above. You can see the snake, and it's got its mouth open, right? And there's like an egg oval thing. Well, you can kind of tell from the shadows, this head points towards the sunrise horizon. Again, on the it doesn't look like it lines up perfectly well right here. This picture probably wasn't taken on the equinox, but on the equinox, it points directly at the spot on the horizon where the sun rises. This is an equinoctial marker. It's been maintained and sort of some of the dirt has been refilled and everything over time because it is dirt. It does erode, but this is a very, very old monument. This is pre-European colonization. This is very old by American standards, at least. We don't know exactly how long, like when the original one was built. We have no idea. There's also, speaking of earth structures, oh shit. There's earthen mounds in North America, all over the place. So this is Monk's Mound in Cahokia. This is the largest one in North America. As you can see, it's very, very, very large. Most of them are not this big. But there's a lot of them. There used to be many, many more of them. Let me see. Giants. No, yeah, there's people that try to say that they're burial mounds for giants. I don't buy into that, but there is a map of these mounds that was made sometime in the 1800s, I believe. That is absolutely amazing. Is this it? This is it. How do I... Whoops. Let me zoom out one. Hopefully you guys can kind of see that. It's still hard to see, I know. Let me... An image, a new tab. Okay, each one of these red dots is a mound. So as you can see, they're everywhere. Mainly, if you look closely, they're following the river system. See what I'm saying? Which would make sense because you would want to build a civilization near a water source, right? I was trying to see if it had a date on this. I think this was made if it's the same one I have found before, I think it was made in the 1800s, the early 1800s. How do I? But yeah, quite a bit of them. Um, and it's interesting. What the fuck is going on here? That all over the world you have pyramids, right? And then suddenly in North America, they stop building pyramids out of stone and start building these giant earthen mounds. Very, there's a person, there's another person for perspective of Monk's Mound. Excuse me, of Monk's Mound. Quite large, and obviously these staircases were put in much later. That's modern stuff that's been put in. Hopefully that's obvious. And unfortunately you can see whether somebody's been driving tractors or something over it. Again, they are earthen, so they do have to be maintained to be kept in this position, this condition. Yeah, something like this is a bit more common. Is a more common size. But yeah, Monk's Mound is a part of Cahokia, which, I mean, this is a recreation, obviously, but it's believed that it was essentially a giant metropolitan city. Again, we're talking pre-European colonization, or even arrival for that matter. And it wasn't just one mound, it was many mounds. Let me, how do we get out of images? Cahokia, largest, most influential urban settlement of the Mississippian culture, which developed advanced societies across what is now central and southeast United States. 2,200 acres. For those of you that are outside of the U.S. or don't use acres, 2,200 acres is 890 hectares. So, do the math, whatever that means to you. Let me see. Does this say how many mounds there are? So they're estimating it at 1050 to 1350 of the current era. So 700 to 1,000 years ago is when this was an active site. Directly across the river from St. Louis. It's in Missouri. If you don't know, you don't know. There's a map right there that'll show you the rough spot of it in America. But 3.5 square miles, 80 man-made mounds. But it says, but the ancient city was much larger. At its apex, around 1100 CE, the city covered about 6 square miles. It included 120 earthworks in a wide range of sizes, shapes, and functions, and had a population between 15,000 and 2,000 people. I'm curious. Population of London, 1100 CE. There you go. In 1100, London's population had somewhat more than 15,000. So literally, Cahokia was at the time on par with the city of London. No, well, not the city of London, but London. You know what I mean? Although some evidence of occupation during the late Archaic period around 1200 BC in and around the site. Cahokia, as it is now defined, was settled around 600 current era. During the late woodland period, mound building this location began with the emergent Mississippian culture around the 9th century. The inhabitants left no written records beyond symbols on pottery, shell, copper, wood, and stone, but the elaborately planned community, wood-hinged mounds, and burials reveal a complex and sophisticated society. Yeah, no shit. You have a city of 15,000 people. That's not exactly primitive. The city's complex construction of earthen mounds required digging, excavation, and transportation by hand using woven baskets. Construction made use of 55 million cubic feet, 1.6 million cubic meters of earth. And much of the work was accomplished over decades. Its highly planned, large, smooth, flat, ceremonial plazas sited all around the mounds with homes for thousands connected by laid out pathways and courtyards suggest the location served as a central religious pilgrimage city. Yeah, again, it was like the major metropolitan, like the spot. Yeah, crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. But yeah, back to what I was saying about like, it's odd how. Sorry, it's odd that so many of the structures in North America are not made out of stone. They're made out of earthen materials, earthen mounds and stuff. Topographical map of the U.S. So part of the reason for this is if you look, so that might not have been the best option to pick. You see, this might be a little better. Okay, so you see you've got the Appalachian Mountains right here, and you've got all the western, basically the western third of the U.S. is very mountainous, but in the middle, everything's flat, very, very flat. There's a reason for that, is because during the last ice age, basically, the younger Dryas period, which Wikipedia puts 12,900 to 11,700 years ago. I've always heard it as 12,800 to 11,600. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's 1,200 years. And this might be a good image right here. Okay. So this is air temperature. This is taken in Greenland, not North America. Right? So this is thousands of years before present on the bottom. So the younger Dryas, so you can see we were already going into a bit of a dip, right? Coming out of the Pleistocene, there's a bit of a dip there. But the younger Dryas, it dips way down and stays down for a while, and then abruptly, very abruptly, shoots back up. You're going from, what is this, roughly negative 45, 47, up to negative 35. This is in Celsius. So what's 10 degrees in Celsius? 18 degrees, an average air temperature. That's not right. What is... Oh. Hold on, let me do the negative 45 C2F. Negative shit. Negative 49 is the negative 45 is negative 49 degrees Fahrenheit. If we go 35, that's negative 31. So you're talking about an 18 degree difference in the average air temperature. That's crazy. That is a massive amount of change. That's, I mean, super warming. And you can see it brings it up almost to where we are presently. I mean, we're only a couple of degrees higher now. It's a couple of degrees warmer now. This caused when So during this period of time right here, right? Hope you guys can see my cursor. If not, I'm basically pointing right where the arrow's pointing. This really low temperature area. North America, I believe it's called the Laurentide ice sheet. Oh shit. Yeah. So here we go. So you can see, I don't know why this is labeled as US. That's all. This must be a really old. This must be a really old. Hold on. Let's see if we can find a better picture. Sorry. Okay, hold on. The Laurentide ice sheet. Map. Maybe that'll work better. This is not bad right here. But it's technically two different ones. There was a very narrow passage that went down. You have the Cordilleran and the Laurentide ice sheet. Okay, it's believed that this ice sheet in some spots may have been close to 2 miles thick. That's a lot of ice. And so when you have this, I already got rid of my, my bad. I already got rid of my my timeline of the temperature. But when you have that sudden jump, that sudden rise in air temperature, all that ice starts melting incredibly fast. And guess what it does? It turns into essentially glaciers, land glaciers, and starts sliding down across the US and basically pulverizes everything in its way. Midwest boulders. Let me see if this gives me, yeah, so you get like this, stuff like this. So if you've ever been in like a creek bed or a river or something like that, and you found little pebbles that are rounded off and smooth, that's what these are. See, I'm trying to find one that's a good example that has somebody in the picture as like a size reference. You also have a boulder fields where just entire fields of boulders got deposited, but there's giant ones that got dumped. See if I can find. No. Anyways, you have these giant boulders. Well, not boulders. You have these giant boulders that were essentially, like I was saying, the way that a creek will get the little pebbles rounded off. Essentially, there was so much water and so much of this rock caught up in the ice and everything, that as the ice is melting, as they're sliding across North America, they end up getting left behind. And so that's why in the Midwest, you end up with all these giant rocks that are just like out in the middle of a field. I don't know why I can't find the picture that I'm wanting to find. I don't know what that is. That's cool as hell though. Anyways, yep. Crazy amounts of just the sheer force of this amount of ice and water rushing across the land. It really, there's nothing modern day Earth. There's no bad weather or flood that we can compare it to. Nothing's ever in our lifetime ever been as bad as what that was. Sorry, I've lost my place here. Oh, yeah. So you're talking about so much water. Have you ever been on the beach and you've seen as the water, the wave crashes on the beach, and then it starts rolling back out to sea, and the sand will kind of make those little ripples? There's places, I wish I could remember what it was called. There's places where you can fit a 2-story house in between those ripples. I don't know whose YouTube channel this is from. Please don't sue me. Is that the house I'm thinking about? If this is the same picture, I think it is. I think one of these things is a house. I can't remember what it is. Actually, this isn't the same picture I was thinking about. Trying to find something that's like has something in it that shows you like a good sort of the scale of it. I mean, that's a road. I think that might be a building. I wish I still had. I used to have this picture saved. Because there's a spot, I think it's along the Columbia River. I don't know if it's this same bar, but there's a spot along the Columbia River where there's a building, and like you can barely see it. I mean, it looks like that in comparison to the size of these ripples. And again, you compare this to the ripples that you see on the beach. This is enormous. The amount of water that it would have taken to do something like this is insane. And of course, it's not as smooth now because it's been above water for a very long time, and it's dried out, and the wind has blown some of it away and everything like that. But yeah, so there's also some question about the possibility of what could cause that temperature to jump so high at the end of the Younger Dryas. I think that right there's a building, ain't it? Right there. But anyways, these are huge. These are huge ripples. Excuse me, huge ripples. Let me get a drink. These are huge ripples. But there's some speculation as to what could have caused that giant spike of 18-degree difference in air temperature in a matter of not very long, to be frank. Somewhere between 500 and 1,000 years, probably. Let me see if it. Whatever. One of the theory, hypothesis, should be called a theory now because people have been putting it forward for several years, and nobody's had much luck trying to disprove it. But it's called the YDIH, the Younger Dryas Impact Hypothesis, which is essentially that something, comets, asteroids, whatever, something impacted the Earth, and that could be what caused a sudden spike. You also have meltwater pulse 1b, but we'll get into that later. So this is what we call the Jesus Christ. This is what we call the Little Ice Age, right here. This is right after the medieval warming period. This right here is where you see massive amounts of people dying, and crops won't grow. Like civilization basically grinds to a halt. I mean, really, it fucked us up pretty good. So you can imagine if that little bit of change right there caused that much chaos for humanity. What do you think happened right here? Right here. Right here. These are big problems, man. And as you can say right here, the whole story of human civilization as it is taught to us supposedly unfolds in this period from 11,600 years ago to present. I would argue really recorded history is really only from about right here, somewhere right in here onward. Only about 5,000-6,000 years is really the max of what we have as far as recorded history. Now we can do archaeology and we can do, we can use science in the modern day to get a better idea of stuff, but we don't really ever talk about anything older than about 10,000 years. You rarely ever hear anybody really discussing what humans were doing. And I mean, we have anatomically modern human remains that date back almost 300,000 years. So the fact that nobody really talks about what this was like for our ancestors is kind of wild, because this right here, this was hell on earth. I mean, this is, you ever seen it, what is it, The Day After Tomorrow? Is that the right movie? Is that, am I thinking of the right movie? Yeah, The Day After Tomorrow. That's essentially what happened. I mean, obviously not in New York. There was no Statue of Liberty at that time, so on and so forth. But that's essentially what it was. I mean, it was a giant cold snap that, when you look at this, we're jumping from negative 32.5 degrees. This is Celsius. I'd imagine so. It's coming out of Greenland, so I'd imagine it's Celsius. Negative 32.5 down to negative 44, 3, something like that. I mean, that's a big jump, man. That's a huge jump. That's like, if that shit happens today, which is, it's basically present temperature, almost exactly, maybe a smidge warmer actually, jumping down that fast in, what is this? Looks like about 500 years, if that, not even 300 years. That would be a civilization ender. I mean, seriously, half the world's population would starve. Probably a good 10-15% would freeze to death. By the way, this right here is why I don't fuck with climate change activists. As well as this right here. As well as this right here. And this right here. And this right here. All these changes that are much more massive, when they show you, a lot of times when they show you the graph for global temperature, what they're showing you is cut out of that right there. they will literally, I can't make a box. They will literally show you from like here onward, or really from like right here onward, that little, like what looks like a dip down, they'll start it in that dip. So all you see is a sudden jump up. And that's what they want to show you. Never mind that for the last 9,000 years, most of the time the temperature has been at or above where it is now. Like all of this, you have one little moment right here where it dips down for a couple hundred years, and one little moment right here where it dips down. Everything else has been above. And everything from like that little dip to everything to the left of that is before fossil fuels. It's before coal trains and all of it. So yeah, the Earth can definitely survive getting a few degrees warmer. Arguably, it would benefit us. That's the whole argument to have in and of itself. But anyways, my point with all of this was to point out that the younger Dryas, right between these two blue arrows right here, where we suddenly dropped real low in temperature and kind of stayed there for a little bit. It got a little warmer, but it was real. Again, this is present temperature right here. So all of this is below present temperature by a significant amount. This was hell on Earth. I mean, there was so much water tied up in ice that the global sea level was probably 300 to 400 foot lower than it is today. And this exposed a massive amount of land all over the world along all the coasts. Let me see if I can find younger Dryas coastline map, maybe. Let's see if we can find. Load this up for you a little bit. Okay. Oops. No, this is not what I was looking for. Hold on. Oh, here's a. So this is the stuff in red is stuff that was above water during the younger Dryas. So as you can see, let me zoom in at all here. I mean, basically, you get down here, like all this Indonesia is, all this shit is connected to the mainland, as well as Japan. I mean, all this is the British Isles. Everything's connected to the mainland for about 1,200 years. Also, anything that's built on this land is now underwater, which means if it's not made of stone, it doesn't exist anymore. Decent chance that if it was made of stone, it's probably destroyed by now. Again, it's been over 10,000 years since it was above water. You can also see there's some new islands that were above water. And a lot of this stuff out in the middle of like the deeper water. Well, not even necessarily the deeper water, but like if it's not, the way they made this map is basically tracking the depth off of coast. So if there's not already an island there for them to track, or if it's an island that's small enough that they didn't give a shit to track it, then it's not going to show up on this map, which is unfortunate because it'd be cool to see. There definitely would have been islands that would have existed at that time that do not exist now. I was trying to find one of North America. Oh, here's. So, does that look those of you that are familiar with a map of North America, there's Florida during the Younger Dryas. It's the Florida chode of the Younger Dryas. And you can see it getting down into the Caribbean. Things look a little different down here as well. Getting down into South America. I don't know how well they did with this area right here. I think some of this is supposed to be a little fatter. I think more of this is supposed to be connected. I'm pretty sure all this connects, but definitely that is pretty accurate as to what Florida would look like. And you can see, if you look close, you can see the raised bit right here. That's the coastline today, right? So that's how all this is extra. All this is extra. All this is extra. All this is all underwater now, man. It's gone. Anything that would have been built there is underwater now. Yeah, you see these, if you're wondering what these pictures we're seeing are, these are impact sites that date correctly to have been a part of the Younger Dryas era and the Younger Dryas boundary, which is what YDB stands for. Essentially, these are impacts that could have contributed to the sudden rise in temperature or the sudden drop in temperature. There are probably sites outside of this that just haven't been discovered yet. And also many of them would have hit the oceans. So obviously we're not going to discover those anytime soon because we don't do any underwater archaeology or any underwater cartography. Never, basically. Unless we're looking for sunken ships full of golden coins. About the only time people ever look at the bottom of the ocean. It was unfortunate, but and there's also people that think that there may have been like a massive solar flare storm, which definitely does happen. Also, here's a more up-to-date thing of possible impacts. And again, these are based off of stuff that we found. There could have been many more than this, but basically we got bombarded by comets. If you're wondering why we suddenly got hit by comets, twice a year we move through the Taurid meteor stream. Once is near Halloween, actually. If you ever heard of the Halloween fireworks, the Halloween light show, that's what it is. So basically, yeah, November 1st. Then at the end of June, we hit it again. So you can see boom, boom. And this purple is the path of the Taurid meteor stream, which is essentially just a field of meteors. And we pass through it twice a year, and apparently, for whatever reason, roughly 11,500 years ago to 12,500, 13,000 years ago, we hit sections of this meteor stream that we just couldn't avoid stuff. We just got bombarded. Yeah, so you can kind of see there's like safer zones in the meteor stream, and then there's less safe zones, and then there's like you're gonna fucking die zones. Hopefully we don't get in any of those zones anytime soon. Hopefully. There was we could talk about Tunguska. So there was an event that happened in well, let's back up, let's get the year right and everything. 1908, I think. Let me see. The Tunguska event, occasionally also called the Tunguska incident, was a large explosion of between 3 and 50 megatons that occurred near Podkemnaya, Tunguska River in Russia, on the morning of the 30th of June 1908. Okay, I got the year right at least. The explosion of the sparsely populated eastern Siberian taiga flattened an estimated 80 million trees over an area of 2,150 square kilometers, 830 square miles, my fellow Americans, of forest, and eyewitness accounts suggest up to 3 people may have died. You know how fucking crazy it is that 830 square miles got flattened and only 3 people died? That's insane. If this happened over a major city today, I mean, if this happens over LA, millions are dead immediately. The explosion is generally attributed to a meteor airburst. So basically, when a meteor is going to hit the Earth, it hits the atmosphere. The friction of the atmosphere essentially burns and disintegrates the meteor up before it can actually make landfall, and so it just kind of disintegrates in the air. But it's the force is still coming down, obviously, as we'll see here in just a moment, where you can kind of see that picture. But we're gonna get we're gonna look at some better pictures here in just a second. The force still impacts the Earth, impacts the surrounding area, but the actual material tends to burn up coming through the atmosphere, at least most of it. You gotta remember, a lot of meteors are like they have a lot of ice, right? The reason we think of them as being fiery is because they skim through our atmosphere and the friction sets everything on fire, but they actually have a lot of ice in them. Some have a lot of ice in them, I guess just to say. The atmospheric explosion of a stony asteroid about 50 to 60 meters, 160 to 200 feet wide. Okay, so remember this is only 160 to 200 foot wide, right? Which is, I mean, it's a big rock, but for space, not really. Remember, we live on a rock that's 26,000 miles wide. So the asteroid approached from the east-southeast, probably with a relatively high speed of about 27 kilometers a second, 60,000 miles an hour. Though the incident is classified as an impact event, the object is thought to have exploded at an altitude of 5 to 10 kilometers, 3 to 6 miles, rather than hitting the Earth's surface, leaving no impact crater. Sort of. It did not leave an impact crater. It did leave an impact spot. We'll get to that in just a moment. The Tunguska event is the largest impact event on Earth in recorded history. Only in recorded history. That's because it just happened like 115 years ago, okay? There's been bigger impacts. We just don't have any record that's passed down to us from people alive at the time. Oh, wait. Though much larger impacts occurred in prehistoric times. Okay, yeah, what I was just saying. An explosion of this magnitude would be capable of destroying a large metropolitan area. Again, if it hits LA, millions of people are dead. The event has been depicted in numerous works of fiction. The equivalent Torino scale rating for the impact is an 8, a certain collision with local destruction. Yep. So Now let's go back. Now that you have an idea, 80 million trees. Let's get some pictures going here. Yeah, so this is the spot that it didn't impact, the non-crater. This is today, or well, within the last couple of years. I mean, it's color photographed, so obviously it's fairly recently. Nothing grows there. It's not like humans aren't preventing trees from growing here to like preserve the spot as a monument. That's natural. All these other trees grew back. The actual bullseye, the actual would-be impact site, trees haven't grown back over 100 years later. And these are pictures from the time of just trees just snapped over. 80 million trees just flat. Of course, we don't have a ton of really good photos from it because it was 1908. So, there wasn't a ton of great pictures at the time. See if I can zoom in some without this getting too blurry. Not really. Not really. Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm just saying, pretty big event. Again, if it hits a major metropolitan city today, basically everybody in that city is going to die. Now, there was also, I believe in 2015, something hit in Russia again. Why this keeps happening in Russia, I don't know. Chelyabinsk meteor was a superbolide that entered Earth's atmosphere of the southern Ural region in Russia, 2013. Sorry. About 9:20. It was caused by an approximately 18 meters, so only 59 feet. Only 59 compared to the 160 to 200 foot diameter. It's only about a third of the size. Near Earth asteroid that entered the atmosphere at a shallow 18.3 plus or minus 0.4 degree angle, the speed relative to Earth of 19.6 plus or minus kilometers per second. Yeah, so again, half the speed, a third of the size, almost nothing. You can see a little video playing over there on the side. We'll get to some better videos here in just a second. The light of the meteor was briefly brighter than the sun, visible as far away as 60 miles. It was observed in a wide area of the region and neighboring republics. Some eyewitnesses also reported feeling intense heat from the fireball. So when it's in the sky, you can feel the heat coming off of it. It exploded in a meteor airburst over Chelyabinsk Oblast at a height of about 29.7 kilometers, 18.5 miles. The explosion generated a bright flash, producing a hot cloud of dust and gas that penetrated to 16.3 miles. And many surviving small fragmentary meteorites. Most of the object's energy was absorbed by the atmosphere, creating a large shock wave. The asteroid had a total kinetic energy before atmospheric impact equivalent to the blast yield of 400 to 500 kilotons of TNT. That's so much, dude. That would really fuck some shit up if it actually hit. Estimated from infrasound and seismic measurements, this was 26 to 33 times as much energy as that released from the atomic bomb detonated at Hiroshima. Sorry. The object approached Earth undetected before its atmospheric entry, in part because its radiant source direction was close to the sun. Yeah, so this is, I forgot to hit this when we were talking about the Taurid meteor stream. Like I said, we pass through the Taurid meteor stream twice a year. One time, the meteors would be coming from the opposite direction of the sun, so they become very easy for us to see. The other time, it's kind of an optical illusion, but they look like they're coming out of the sun. It's very difficult to see those coming. Uh, 1,491 people were injured seriously enough to seek medical treatment. All of the injury were due to indirect effects rather than the meteor itself, mainly from broken glass from windows that were blown in when the shockwave arrived minutes after Super Bowl lights flashed. Some 7,200 buildings in 6 cities across the region were damaged by the explosion's shockwave, and authorities scrambled to help repair the structures in sub-freezing temperatures. Again, a third of the size, moving half the speed, didn't make landfall again. 1,500 people were sent to the hospital. 7,200 buildings in 6 cities were damaged by it. See if I can find you the video. Yeah, let's
It's love at first bite
ad.
with Haagen-Dazs.
I should have ran the ad blocker, my bad.
White chocolate raspberry bar.
I guess Russia today is getting our view.
Racing toward Earth, streaking across the sky there, crashing into the ground in those woods. And look at some of the other images emerging tonight. The cloudy trail the meteor produced, and on impact, this, carving a little pool into a frozen lake. It's the biggest meteor in more than a century to hit the planet. This one crashed in Russia. 1,000 people were injured from shards of flying glass and debris. Tonight here, we have learned there was no warning. More on that from NASA in just a moment here, but we begin with ABC's Kirat Radia in Moscow.
Well, hold on, if they're actually going to play the freaking...
Came out of nowhere, a bright speck in the sky, soon streaking across the horizon, followed by an almost apocalyptic scene, a blinding flash of light, and then all hell broke loose. Dizzying explosions shattering windows, knocking these office workers to the ground. These students were lucky, protected by curtains from the flying glass, and these men barely escaped the blast. In the streets, pandemonium. Terrified residents thought the world was ending. People started to panic.
Well, it probably
Somebody
did
screamed,
seem like
"The
it was
end of the
going
Earth,"
to.
he says. The chaos of the meteor was captured on cell phones and on dashboard cameras of cars, so popular here in Russia. The blast was so powerful it knocked down a wall at this factory. In all, over 1,200 people were injured.
Again, man,
mostly
this
from
is
broken
like,
glass.
this isn't even a
3,000
real hit.
buildings
This is a
damaged,
warning
over
shot
1
across the
million square
bow.
feet of glass shattered. Many were injured after going to the window to check out the flash in the sky.
I mean, this is,
The glass shattered and
you know,
bounced
and
back
it
on
did
me.
this kind
My
of
beard
damage
was
in
cut open,
6
this man
different
says.
cities.
The meteor was believed to be about 50 feet wide, weighing a whopping 7,700 tons. That's about the same as the Eiffel
It is
Tower.
beautiful, though, to see.
It raced towards Earth at over 40,000 miles per hour. As it crashed into the atmosphere, it began to break into pieces, causing those booms and sending those powerful shockwaves towards the ground, rocking a zone stretching hundreds of miles away, those shockwaves causing all of the damage. As for the pieces of the meteor, one of the bigger chunks landing here, leaving that massive hole in the frozen lake.
Tonight, about 20,000 Russian troops are headed to the affected area. They'll be Russian.
Something completely different, not to be.
It's possible that such an event could happen again. This was actually the
It will
largest
happen
fireball that we've
again,
seen in a long time, since
dumbasses.
about 1908.
Listen, I'm not trying to be like doom and gloom, fucking dig a hole in the ground and disappear from society. I'm just saying that, like, this has been happening forever. Impacts have been happening for millions of years. They're not going to stop. Anyways, my whole point of why I went off on this tangent about impacts was to explain the the possibility of impacts causing the sudden temperature change for the younger Dryas. The reason I was explaining the younger Dryas was because of just to explain about how flat North America was, and to kind of ask the question of, do you think that because North America kind of had all this change going on, that may have something to do with why people were building earthen mounds instead of stone pyramids like everywhere else in the world? Anyways, again, this was not supposed to be this wasn't supposed to be a fully drawn out thing. You know, I want to get it more into the, you know, nuclear melt spirals and all the cool stuff about the impact hypothesis. I also want to do a much deeper dive into some of the archaeology that's been done in North America and elsewhere in the world. I want to talk about South America. I want to talk about Turkey. I want to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. But this was basically, I just wanted to burn some time just chatting and kind of rant about something that I enjoyed reading about. But I think we're gonna call it there, man. I'm getting kind of hungry, so I'm probably gonna fix me a burrito. But I hope you enjoyed it.